Hello and welcome to the Joe Ligato Show. I'm your host, Dr. Joe Ligato, and we're going to be talking about a Twitter thread on how Europe is doing compared to the United States and compared to China. And so this is by Science is Strategic, and it shows that Europe is significantly lagging behind the United States and China as a technology power. Data rich thread below on the economic consequences of tech stagnation for Europe's prosperity and beyond. Okay, so looking at this graphic here, we see harder, better, faster, stronger. Market capitalization of venture-backed companies valued at over $1 billion. And we see that Europe has not been doing particularly well, at the very least since 2011. And that's interesting because you see that, wait, let's look at this. So United States started to get a lot of market capitalization of venture-backed companies around 2013. That seems to be when the United States started. And then China around 2014. So China started to play the catch-up game after seeing the United States was ahead in terms of market capitalization of venture-backed companies. Europe, though, had a very, very, very slow increase starting probably around like 2018. And so it's just not kept up with its prior competitors. So that should be concerning for my European audience here. So let's see what else they have to say. Europe is still a major R&D spender, but it was recently surpassed by China, whose spending has skyrocketed in recent decades. Okay, so refusing to stay in its lane, research and development spending in billions of dollars. Oh, interesting. So if I'm understanding this correctly, China doesn't have tech companies, but they're spending a ton on research and development. That should be very concerning. Why are their tech companies not better funded here? If I had to guess, I would say that this is America siphoning off the success of Europe. So Europe is innovating in a lot of ways, but then all those innovations end up going to America and benefiting America. So this is just another form of America's colonialism and America's dominance of its supposed allies. That is really what makes the most sense to me. So we're seeing that Britain is stagnant, Japan is stagnant, the European Union, 28 countries, is doing decently, but China has surpassed it. And we could see that it's very clear that this was from 2018. That China, if things continued, its research and development funding is probably ahead of the United States, or at least roughly equivalent to the United States at this point. So it's just concerning. I mean, European Union is doing the research, but then not getting the benefit in terms of having actual companies that are getting the venture capital funding. In key areas like math and computing, European universities underperform their American Stanford and MIT types of counterparts, and Chinese peers, I need to know how to pronounce these eventually, Tsinghua and Harbin. Please, if you speak Mandarin in the comment section, please let me know exactly how you're actually supposed to pronounce that. That'd be very helpful. But you see that, yeah, there's looking at these companies here, China, United States, China, Singapore, United States, United States, China. So Europe is just not a peer competitor in things like math and computing. In overall quality, scientific publications, the United States and China tower over European competition here. Okay, so that's a bit hard to read. Let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger for people. Okay, still pretty blurry, but we'll have to work with what we have available to us. The leading countries by research output, as measured by the metric share in the Nature Index for 2021, I believe that is, compared with their share for 2020. Okay, so we see here that, okay. Oh, the interesting thing here is looking year to year, who's declining and who's rising. Okay, so we see not much change in Australia, Switzerland, South Korea, Canada, France, Japan, no. United Kingdom, no. Germany, looks like a slight increase maybe. But the interesting thing here is China is increasing its research output as measured by this metric. and the United States is declining. So the Chinese increase is actually coming at the expense of the United States. So that's an interesting graphic there. Let's see what else we have. In key areas like AI research, European researchers lag Chinese and American researchers, and many of the very best European scholars work in institutions like New York University and Meta. Okay, so what they're saying here is exactly what I said earlier, which is that China prepares people, they train people, they do the research and development, and then those European scholars end up going to America. Those European innovations end up going to America as well. And so America is benefiting from the successes of Europe. Europe is essentially subsidizing America's growth, which is exactly what you would expect. America is a colonial power. They're exploiting the people of Europe and they're extracting their resources. And for some reason, Europeans are just kind of okay with that, even though it's evident. It's immediately obvious if you study this at all. Okay, so China here, in terms of AI research, doing extremely well. United States doing extremely well here. India doing better than I thought. But the thing is, you need to have a lot of people data, a lot of behavioral data in order to do artificial intelligence research for the most part. There's some AI research where you don't necessarily need it, I guess. But for the most part, you do need behavioral data. And so India, being a large country, would have access to that. And on top of that, a lot of American tech companies are led by Indian workers. And so some of that might be filtering back into India for artificial intelligence research. But you see that all these other countries, particularly European countries, are just lagging behind. They're not particularly successful in terms of artificial intelligence research. US big tech companies like Google and Microsoft dominate the publication of AI. Okay, that's not difficult to understand why. No European tech companies even come close. Oh, and I should mention why, since I say it's obvious. But Google, obviously, because they control the search engine, so they have a ton of people data. And then Microsoft, because they control things like the operating systems. And so that's a ton of people data as well. So really what you need is people's data. And so any companies that have access to that, social media companies as well, are big ones. Oh, you see that here too. So Meta also has a ton of people data. And Amazon, because they're selling products, so they have a ton of people data. I'm surprised to see Stanford up here, but that's, I mean, I know Stanford just from reading the research papers in artificial intelligence, but I don't know why they're so big compared to, say, like, where's Harvard on here? I don't, it's interesting. Why is it that specific college that is big on AI? In terms of AI funding, Europe is a distant third to the United States and China. It's not even close. Okay, yeah, there you see a very big gap there. Although there's a very big gap between the United States and China as well. So we see that private investment in artificial intelligence, Australia, Singapore, Japan, India, Canada, Israel. Israel is competing far above its weight class there. Britain, European Union, and then you see China second, and then the United States first. Interesting numbers. In terms of overall venture funding, the United States towers over all other countries. Europe's large economies like France and Germany underperform given their size. And it makes sense given what we've talked about before, which is that, sure, they have the research and development and other things like that, but all of their innovations end up being extracted and given to America. Oh, wow, venture capitalist funding. See, that's the thing where China is doing far more with far fewer resources. But once these venture capitalists realize what China is able to do, that venture capitalist funding is going to pivot towards China. And I don't think this is going to be a linear decline. China's just going to rise very, very, very quickly, and people are not going to know what to do with that. In terms of high performance computing, the United States and China dominate with no European country even close. Okay, here we see United States, China, supercomputers, and superpowers. Okay, share the 500 fastest supercomputers in the world by country percentage. Oh, we see China is soon going to be overtaking the United States there, so that's very interesting. The EU is at best and also ran in the technology stake. Oh, so they're saying if you like ran the race, I mean, EU was just kind of there, but they didn't perform well enough to get like top percentages. Latest market value of tech stocks. Okay, so Apple, Microsoft, Alphabet, Nvidia, Meta. Okay, so Tencent, that's a Chinese company. Taiwan Semiconductors, Taiwanese company, but I mean, Taiwan is considered to be a part of China, so that we can consider that to be a Chinese company as well. Samsung, Broadcom. Okay, I don't know much about Broadcom. And then ASML, and that's the only European company. So that's why they said they just also ran. In key biotechnology areas like CRISPR, US and Chinese scientists dominate the publication of scientific research. Yeah, this is one of those things where I view United States as being very competitive. Yeah, they are significantly ahead of China still to a decent extent. Japan's doing somewhat well there, but again, given Japan's size, they shouldn't be stagnating like this. But America pretty much crippled them with the Plaza Accord, so it's kind of understandable there. If we could only turn back time, top 100 companies by market capitalization. Oh, wow. Just seeing how Europe was doing back in the 2000s compared to now, it's just like night and day. And then you see China growing there. Yeah. It's just showing that, I mean, obviously China is not getting their percentage of the market from Europe. They're competing with the United States to a very large extent. It's the United States that is kind of cannibalizing Europe right now. And they've been doing it for years. It's just become more evident, self-evident nowadays. Since 1990, European markets have also underperformed United States and Chinese connected markets. Okay, MSCI stock market indices. Yeah, the stock market. Okay, so their markets are just not doing particularly well. Britain is doing far worse than I expected because I thought London was more of a hub of money, of wealth. Okay, what else do we have here? Highly skilled immigrants also express preferences to move to the United States and the United Kingdom ahead of all European countries by a wide margin. Okay, so this is exactly as I expected. The European Union does produce people of high competence, and then they end up going to the United States, and so all of that ends up benefiting the United States. So that's very tragic, obviously. This thread, well, I guess it's not tragic if you're in America and benefiting from it, but even then, it's pretty tragic because you're crippling your own competence because all you're doing is extracting the competence of other countries instead of making sure that your own populace is competent. So in the long term, it's not a benefit to the United States, and it's also not a benefit to Europe in either the long or short term. Okay, so they say they're not bashing Europe. Relative decline. Europe is still dominant power in some traditional sectors like tourism and luxury goods. I mean, that's not that big of a video, I don't think. European technology like Airbus and ASML are genuinely world leading. Yeah, ASML, very powerful there. China is obviously trying to make its own domestic market for what ASML produces, but it's slow going, and that's a major barrier for them. Europeans also have better performing healthcare systems than America, as measured by traditional outcomes, and Europeans on average now live significantly longer than Americans do. Yeah, American life expectancy has been declining while other countries in Europe and China have been increasing. European cities are safer from violent crime than most large American cities, especially from gun violence. So yeah, America is just get out of the cities because that's not a good place to be. And America is a very, very dangerous country. And then the thing is, even if people get caught for committing crimes in America, they're not actually punished anymore. And so you see people with 60 violent crimes on their record, they're still out on the streets murdering and raping other people. So that's just how America is right now. Europe has taken climate change more seriously than other major powers. Okay, so they've gone into renewable energy, but again, China is completely dominant in renewable energy, electric vehicles, things like that. And so, yeah, Europe's doing okay, but they're still not doing, they're still not really a peer to China or the United States in any of the ways that really matter. Most European countries are more generous as a percentage of their national income than the United States in giving foreign aid. That's not something to be proud of. Their money is being taken from them to a large extent. They've been completely controlled by the United States, and so their money is going elsewhere. But the overall risk of Europe is that its prosperity and influence will continue to decline given how important technology is to economic vitality and competitiveness. Okay, so GDP, market capitalization. Okay, so yes, it's both of those are very clearly declining. It looks like market capitalization is declining a little bit faster than GDP. And so what they're saying there is that if if market capitalization is declining, then GDP will eventually decline as well. It's just kind of declining at a slower rate than market capitalization. Slowing tech competitiveness has already contributed to lower levels of productivity growth and per capita income in Europe versus the United States. Okay, we see that there. The United States economy and the Eurozone were roughly the same size in 2008. Okay, so this is a really interesting one. The United States is now nearly twice as big as measured by current prices. So I used to say this all the time, that Eurozone was really strong when I was growing up. I was, I believe, like 18 in 2008. And it's just died off by this point. And again, I think it's the America cannibalizing Europe and cannibalizing Japan and cannibalizing all of its allies. That's the thing where, like, United States doesn't benefit other countries. I keep asking people, and I keep waiting to hear in my comment box, who benefits actually from working with the United States? Because I can't see any of them. I mean, South Korea to a certain extent, but really it's just because South Korea is needed to fight North Korea whenever the United States wants a war with North Korea next. And so United States just doesn't benefit other countries. So why would you ever work with them? If you care about your own country, you would not work with the United States. That's just very clear. And you can see that here. The Eurozone is doing very, very, very poorly, given that they've been working with the United States. In fact, the Goldman Sachs forecast of 2075 predicts the world's three largest economies will be China, India, and then the United States. No European countries is even close. So going from the old world, major superpowers, colonial powers, to not even being close here is, I mean, it should be tragic for them, but they're not doing anything to revitalize their economies. They just don't care anymore. Okay, so that is my comment on the current state of Europe and how things are declining in Europe. If you liked that, please give us a thumbs up in the algorithm. It helps us. And please subscribe to our channel for more content. We go over all the latest, most important geopolitics news to keep you up to date about what's going on in the world that you should know about. And please leave us a comment in the comment box. I love engaging with our viewers, reading what you have to say on these things. And thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye.